O'clock. Welcome to Bismarck-Burleigh Commission Committee. It's scheduled to meet today, Tuesday, July 1st, 2025, 4 p.m. Tom Baker Room, City County Office Building. Call the roll, please.
It's Administrator Tamana.
Here.
Auditor Spenskowski.
Here.
Mayor Schmitz.
Here.
Commissioner Bakken.
Here. Public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on any of the agenda items, please come forward. Public comment. Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Wow, Commissioner Munson had nothing to say. Public comment is now closed. Moving on to approval of the minutes.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call the roll, please.
Auditor Spenskowski.
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Administrator Tamanic.
Yes.
Next item up, City of Bismarck Land Development Code Project Overview.
Good afternoon.
So we're going to ask you to speak into the mic,
Good afternoon.
and she's the consultant who's helping the planning and zoning rewrite the land development code, so.
Just for the record, state who you're with.
Yeah, I'm Elizabeth Garvin. I'm a director with Clarion Associates in Denver. And I've got a short presentation for you, so let me pull that up. Or maybe not. Do I go to slideshow? There it goes.
They keep switching back
Do
and
slideshow?
forth between laptop.
Okay, all right, this is why we don't let me do technology. Thank you. Okay. Am I flipping slides, or is that from the magic back room?
Yeah, just hit the arrow, the right
Okay.
arrow to.
All right, so just have a little bit, fairly short presentation to give you an update of what's going on. The objectives of the project, our schedule, we are drafting in 3 chunks that we call modules, so I've got overviews of 2 of them and where we're going next. So we have 4 drafting objectives for this project. Primarily, we're implementing Together 2045. I took 2,000 years off that, the city's comprehensive plan. We are establishing for the city an objective set of development standards to make the regulations predictable for users. We are looking at predictable development outcomes, so we want projects to go through the process, start to finish, with both applicants and staff and elected officials understanding what's going to happen. And then finally, and important to a lot of people, we're creating a code that's going to be user-friendly, so you can search it, so you can find your way through it, and so you can find regulations easily. So our project timeline, we started in May of last year, and we'll be finishing up in December of this year. We are in the middle of drafting the full code, and we have 2 of the 3 pieces put together, and we'll be starting on the 3rd shortly. And I'm going to talk about those 2 in detail in a minute, so I won't do that here. So the first module that we did was primarily covering new and existing zoning districts and uses and use-specific standards. So the core of the code, we are looking at a code that both converts existing zoning districts to something slightly broader that allows a little more use, a little more development and redevelopment option, and also adding a few districts where necessary to make sure that the city can reflect new development patterns or development that's taken place in the past that is something the city wants to see going forward. So we've got a couple slides, 3 slides on what's changing, what isn't changing, and what are we confirming. So what we did with the zoning district lineup is we looked to align the districts with the future land use pattern of Together 2045. This is taking the existing zoning districts, make sure that they implement something in the plan, and adjusting as needed. We do want to add more flexibility to development options. We want to make sure current development and development as it changes over time is contemplated in the code. So as people come through and they want to develop, they're able to do it within the city. And then Particularly for downtown, in and around downtown, we want to incorporate the city's basic structure and site design requirements. We will have some structure and site design requirements outside of downtown, but they'll all be fairly baseline and intended to reflect how development that goes into a place that already has existing development fits within the character and the context of that area. We've looked to expand the number and types of permitted uses. We want to make it easy for someone to make use of their property, right use in the right location in alignment with the plan. And then we recognize that uses change over time. And so we want to have those standards in place and then limit the standards that might restrict reasonable change. So really this is going to the goal of looking forward, of creating regulations that work in the future and that can be fairly predictable. So what's new? So we've reduced the minimum lot sizes in the urban districts to encourage the creation of more housing, more range of housing products, range of housing opportunities for people. We've also created districts that are more specifically focused on mixed-use development, so residential plus commercial or even residential plus industrial, and allowing that as an approved development type within the city. We're looking at transition standards, so where you have residential next to something more intense. We maybe don't want a lot of space there or a berm separating them, but we want maybe some fencing and some landscaping. We're working on the airport overlay district. We've included some courtyard development standards. It was a pretty specific discussion in the city. It's just allowing smaller scale development as kind of infill in some places. And then in terms of making the code user friendly, in the layout, we're moving things into tables so you can find dimensional information really quickly. You can find use information really quickly. We love Easter, but do not want the zoning code to be an Easter egg hunt. So we just want people to find the information they're looking for. So what's staying the same? Still a full range of residential development allowed in the city. So this ranges from single-family detached to single-family attached, so that could be like townhomes, to multifamily, so that could be apartments. So within Bismarck, you have different people that need different housing types, and we want to make sure that all those options are there. The rural zoning districts are staying the same. There will be no changes to that. We have been looking back and forth between county zoning and city zoning to make sure that we're aligning those in the right place. We have kept and carried forward many of the use-specific standards that are rules that are attached to uses. So if I want to put a commercial dog kennel on my property, what are the rules that relate to that? Those rules would apply to the mayor also, and they would apply to Ben also. So that would be some consistency around a use like that. And we're carrying forward the recently adopted home occupation standards. No changes to that. That was a good discussion, and we don't want to send people sideways wondering what happened. We're clarifying just a few things, and this is really kind of getting into the details, but the details are where applicants and staff need to be in the same place to make a project move quickly through the process. So we're clarifying the conditional zoning and PUD process. That'll be coming up shortly. We've put some temporary use standards and permit processes in that are separate from special events. So if you want to have a marathon, that's a special event kind of process. If you want to have a temporary office on your work site, that's a temporary use process. We've clarified measurements. So how do we measure distances? How do we measure square footage? We're all doing it the same way. How do we measure height? We've added in some basic short-term rental requirements. We expect to have a conversation with the public about that. Some small cell wireless telecom standards. And then there are standards in the current Title 14 that are located in other titles, like domestic pets. So we've looked to land those in only one place. We don't want overlapping regulations, so we don't have problems with consistency or conflict. So that module, the zoning districts and uses, the status, the round one drafting is complete. We've taken it through the technical committee, staff review, and our steering committee review. We have a steering committee of community members. And we've given an update to the city commission and put it out for community feedback. This summer, we'll be doing some in-person and online engagement about those rules and regulations. And we will be in person at some of the city's events that go on and online so people can participate however they want to. When we're done drafting everything, we roll that together into a consolidated draft. So that's Module 1. We've started Module 2. This is a pretty technical set of regulations. So here's where we have site and structure standards, parking, connectivity, landscaping, environmentally sensitive lands, outdoor lighting, signs, subdivision, and stormwater management. Yesterday and a little bit today, we've been having conversations about a series of questions that we came up with while we were drafting. We want to make sure that we start the regulations in the right place. So some of the conversations we've been having are more urban oriented, like where do we locate parking in a multifamily development or a commercial development? What should the maximum block length in the city be? Some are more related to environmentally sensitive areas. So do we need a stream buffer within the city? Also came up, but not on this list, do we need standards for development in steep slope areas, and what would that look like? We've pulled together the city's lighting standards and fence requirements into their own sections, so we're double checking on whether we have everything in place. And then we have kind of a broader look at mobility going. So what happens when we allow private streets? What happens if we prohibit them? And then how do we make sure we're moving people around in cars, by bicycle, and if they're walking? So what's the connectivity that we require there? And then finally, working all the way back up to landscaping. We've been talking about requiring residential street trees and a minimum amount of residential landscaping required by the zoning district type. And then back to the street trees, does the city want to set up a fee in lieu option? So if a developer or a property owner would prefer not to have a tree, maybe it's blocking a view or different reasons, maybe the topography of the site, should they be able to essentially buy out that requirement? The money would go to a fund that would put trees elsewhere. So these are our bigger picture conversations. This draft is moving through the process right now. We'll finish up with staff, and then we'll go back to our technical committee and steering committee again, and then we'll put it out for public review, and we'll have some late summer public discussions about this stuff. A couple more slides. So the staff draft, the initial draft is complete. We've given it to the city. The staff is starting to take a look at it. We'll go through our work with that, and then we'll start rolling that into the consolidated draft. So we do all these modules, and then we bring them together. After that, so this is a list of some of our summer outreach, and we, encourage residents, primarily city residents, but county residents. The city plays a role in county life, and we certainly do not tell people they can't respond to us just because they don't live in the city. So we'll have some summer outreach opportunities that people can join us for, and we'll take comments and consolidate the comments and share them back with our draft reviewers, and then decide about making changes to the drafts. So they are really in preliminary form right now, and we'll start getting the feedback, and then we'll make those changes. That's kind of it, really. It is, it's a long-ish process, and we just try to keep everybody updated along the way. So that's what's going on.
Thanks. Any questions?
No question, I just want to make sure everybody's well aware, like the steering committee's got developers on it who are inside the city and in the ETA developing, so they have had significant input into the land use, especially around housing and commercial development. So I think it's important for everybody to know that group was very critical to this, and then other business users as well.
Well, I think it's valuable, too, coming up with our next agenda item and future discussion about the ETA as well, so. Jason?
I guess I do have a question. So much of what we do is driven by those that show up, by the comments that are provided, by those that are engaged. I guess to this point, are you satisfied with the public involvement that you've had? Or no, I guess maybe the question is, are there things that we as the city could be doing to encourage more participation? Because if we hear from the same 6 people, we probably won't get new ideas and.
Or county for that matter too, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
are there ways that we could broaden the ask or the call to action to try and get more voices to help provide feedback and input?
I don't think, I think the timing on that question is great because we are really just getting started with the outreach. We kind of, in doing a code like this, we know we have to balance getting people in early versus having enough information so we can answer their questions, because usually somebody will ask a question that relates to 3 different parts of the code. Even though they're just asking, can I have an ADU? It's, you can have it in your district, and here are the standards for it, and here's the process. So we will be working with Daniel and Ben and the rest of the planning staff on what we've started outlining as our summer outreach. I think that we would probably love to have it messaged out, on the city website or at meetings. If we could encourage people to join us, that would be great. Part of our approach to that is starting with education. Sometimes people are a little afraid to jump in on zoning. It either sounds a little frightening. I don't know anything about that. I don't want to say anything about it. Or it sounds boring, which I don't understand because I think it's fascinating. But so this first bit of outreach we're going to do will be focused on educating people about zoning and teaching them how they can come in and make useful comments. And so we will work with you and let you know where we're going and what we're doing. And we're always open to feedback to, hey, could you reach out to this group? We've been talking about doing something just as simple as coffee with a planner. So saying that, someone from planning department is going to be available at this coffee shop for a few hours. Don't have to come to City Hall, just drop in and say hi. So that's really low tech to, online surveys or, in-person meetings. So how about if we finish polishing up what we think we're doing and get some feedback from all of you about that and make changes and adjust on the fly as we need to?
I think that all sounds great. Just coming from the city administration department, we've got a couple communications professionals that would love to help, and I'm pleased to say that just over the last couple of weeks, we have eclipsed 20,000 followers on our Facebook account. So they've done a really nice job growing that audience, and it's projects like this where we can share that message with even more people. So if there are things that we can do collectively between the consulting world, the
Great.
community development department, city administration, I guess accept this as an offer that we are
Please.
more than happy to help. So,
Excellent, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
No, thank you for your time this evening.
Yeah. Actually, that's very exciting considering our next agenda item number 5, proposed August 5th, 2025 combined city-county meeting. Jason, do you have information on that?
That is the next date for this regular group to meet.
Oh, that's this one.
The first Tuesday, but we had identified that as the potential date for all the commissioners,
Full
both city
commission,
and
yeah.
county, to come together. I think Auditor Splonskowski was working on availability of the county commission. I don't know that you've heard from all 5 as of yet.
I believe I've heard back from 3 that
Okay.
they're able to attend.
Okay.
My understanding was the goal was to have all 10 at the table
Right,
collectively.
that would be
and-
our hope.
And that date.
We knew we were short 2 today out of the city
Okay.
commission.
So that date, when we asked a few weeks ago, that August 5th date worked for all of our commissioners. So if we can get the other confirmation from the other couple, then all we would need to do is lock it in. And then I guess maybe for this discussion today, do we want to start to pick through, is there an agenda? Is there expectations rather than just show up and start talking?
So I think we talked last time that we would hear from both planning and zoning departments.
Right.
And get a kind of you call it like an education. I think that's kind of a good term. Here's where we are, where are our differences between
'cause
the
I think
two.
there's a lot of
What's the impact, one way
Lack
or
of
the other?
knowledge on possibly both parties, so.
Both parties and also for the public
Right.
as well. And I think Ben, they actually were meeting already today, I think, some together with both departments.
Yeah, I'm sorry to impromptu come up here, but Mayor, it's pertinent to your comments here. Yeah, Mitch and Daniel and I and Brady actually did meet today, and we will be. We did have a discussion about putting a presentation together. I think As it stands now, I'll probably end up giving the presentation. Mitch will be available for any questions, anything we share. We'll want to make sure county staff is it's consistent with their view as well when we're comparing things like zoning ordinance and building code. And so, we confirmed with Mitch that he is more than happy to help do some of the legwork there and help in the preparation. And if it's August 5th, we'll be there with that presentation and have staff available to answer questions.
Then from there, we'll see where I don't know how to establish an agenda until we've had that piece, really, right?
Well, and I think the place this starts is the informational piece, because having some discussions with some of the city commissioners, they don't know the full breadth of how this functions and how it's supposed to function, and our goal is to make it function better. So I think I said last time, it's like Jason and I had probably about an hour conversation just spitballing stuff and came up with a good pathway for solutions just in an hour conversation. So that was kind of where I was thinking that if we get all of us together from an institutional knowledge perspective, we can come up with better solutions.
So I think that's the agenda.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Steve?
No. Did you want to do a follow-up with the other commissioners that aren't available and see if...
Yep, I'll reach
Okay.
out to them again.
Okay. Perfect. Next item up, 2026 budget discussion.
Sorry, can we go back
Oh,
to
yes.
number 5? Is the county commission meeting in regular session next week, Monday?
Yes.
The 7th? Okay.
7th. Yeah, and that,
So maybe that would be a time
Yeah.
to get everybody, or at least discuss it. I think having both boards talk about it to get the word out, to let people know. Obviously, number 1, there's going to be public comment on the agenda, so we'll have an opportunity to hear from people in that regard. But at the same time, there may be people that watch county meetings that may not watch this meeting or
Right.
city meetings. So I guess just as a suggestion to raise awareness for those at home that are consuming these meetings, let them know that things are progressing and moving forward. That would be the
and
only
then
ask.
can you add that to the agenda?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Item number 6, 2026 budget discussion.
So I think the primary thing is to figure out where we're landing, if we have any idea yet. Probably public health, because I think municipal court leases,
Right.
that's already kind of,
Yeah, we've got
we know
those
what your
covered.
occupancy needs are, at least through 26.
Right, and like I think I said last time, we're probably in the same position through 27 with where the discussions came in on a timeline for the Provident building. Commissioner Munson, seeing how you're on the budget committee, if you wouldn't mind coming up, and we just went through the budget committees last week. So, Commissioner Munson, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so as the committee met, and we've all talked about this 3% cap more than we care to, but the direction from the budget committee to the Burleigh County Commission on public health, we're still at that 60-40 split is what is in our packet to present to the commissioners the
On Monday.
21st,
Yeah.
when we release our preliminary budget. So that's the number that we settled on within the budget committee.
Okay.
And beyond that,
Until you get to the commission?
Until we
Yeah.
get 3 other commissioners talking, that's the best I can give.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I know we've already gone through the preliminary budgeting process, so I think we used hopefully a safe number.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Dimitri, is it a safe number? Okay, thank you.
I didn't know how else to word it.
What was the date of that? Was it July 21st?
For Traverse, yeah.
And that's the preliminary budget for Burleigh County? date?
Yeah,
Is that- Okay.
I'm wondering, Wayne, if we should have a preliminary conversation, just,
So one of the other items that came up during the budget hearings was to put together a workshop the week prior. So I know Auditor Sponskowski is working on a date for the week prior to preliminary budgets. A lot of it is to really get a handle on the 3% cap, how that affects us today and 3 to 4 years from now. but also to go through some of the requests for the adding capital improvement fund and doing a few other items, consolidating everybody's capital improvements out of each individual budgets into one. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk
Right.
about ahead of time.
But I'm wondering if, just for the city's benefit, if we can have a preliminary discussion on if there's appetite to go to the 60/40 or leave it at 75/25, just so the city needs a definitive answer? I mean, are you up against a timeline for anything like that, or are you okay with us waiting till the 21st?
I think we're probably.
Or do you
okay.
need a number now, Dimitri?
I think based on what my understanding where we're at, we're probably okay, and if
Okay.
end up with the 60/40, then it allows us some
Flexibility,
flexibility.
okay.
Given with the way the whole new world we're in at the moment, today's world, right? I think we just have to have a preliminary budget posted by the 7th of August, and we'll be able to
Right,
meet
okay.
that. Because we'll have our preliminary meeting on the 22nd, because we don't have another meeting before the 7th.
Right, okay, so if you're fine with that, then we'll,
Right, am I right on that? Okay. So
Okay.
I think we know where you're kind of, what you're recommending, and I think we're safe to that.
okay, so we'll just leave it at the budget committee.
Yep.
Our little workshop, and then the 21st, so.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Wayne. Any other 2026 budget discussions?
I don't think so. I think our biggest thing is just continue to have the dialogue of
Yeah.
where
And
public health
that's
is
the big
landing.
one,
Yeah.
so.
And the rest, I think we've already handled, I think. Oh, it's not done yet? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought
Yeah.
there had been, I thought we had kind of, that had kind of.
And I know there's been some conversations about the IT budget. That was the one big one too that I think you guys even talked the other day, if I remember right.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
This is a bit news to me.
Your foot's asleep. Well, just hop then.
Getting old?
Yeah, a little bit. Did the county have, budget committee have any issues with the IT?
The only concern the budget committee had with IT was replacing all of the switches at one time. That was the big conversation that we had, that dollar amount.
So the only issue, I talked to Tandra this morning, our IT manager, and she basically said, and Zach said, essentially that these switches, we can stagger them out, but the problem is if any of them, one of them go out of warranty, which
Takes
I
the
think that-
system down, yeah.
Yeah, it takes you guys down completely, and it'll be like an emergency all of a sudden.
Well, and part of the conversation that we had was even stocking one or two just in case, you know? So rather than replacing them all, go in stages, but we would purchase to have a few in stock just in case. I don't know if that conversation went to you or not. That was the conversation we had with Mary.
The only issue with the thing is, you guys can take, what I understand is, even if you replace them, you can take them with you to the Provident building. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that they just stay
Right.
here or something.
But it's
You-
not a switch we use. It's not a switch that we're using at the Provident building. So our IT folks have said they'll stay. I mean, we don't have a use for them.
I know, but what I'm saying is, if you guys go out of commission, all of a sudden our team has to like rush like that
Right.
and be ready to jump on and fix it and set it up.
That's what we pay you for. I'm just kidding.
I don't want to put you guys in that position.
That's not a good position to put anybody into, and we all know that emergency services cost more than just routine maintenance.
I'd be happy to have Tandra come, and I don't know, we don't have another meeting.
No,
right?
we don't.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess I would suggest that Tandra and the county's IT coordinate, and if
Yeah.
there's, I mean, I understand exactly where the county would be coming from. If they don't need to replace all the switches that, for a 1 year or 18-month time frame.
Well, and maybe it's,
Because they're not gonna be able to reuse them.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're gonna do with the space.
But let me, what if I guess.
but if you guys were to be in a position where you could use them, then maybe we figure out something where we just go ahead and replace them, and at which time we're no longer using them, there's
Some buyback thing.
There's
Yeah,
a buyback.
Sure.
You know, that might be the best route to go down.
Yeah, we could do that.
Because you guys can utilize them even after we don't, but, you know, so we'll just rent them for a while.
Well, and what if, like, you guys have run into some sort of issues with the building? Like,
Right.
what if the Proudhon building
Yeah.
extends
Right.
beyond 27?
Yep.
You know, that'll give you
Yeah.
guys a chance to, like, not run into any more. That's kind of what we were talking about this morning, is what would happen if the building would go into 28? You know, or
Yeah.
you know, I don't know.
God, I hope not.
I'm just,
I mean, I think.
Looking at the
We
trends.
don't want
Right.
to put you out of business.
Yeah, but
It drops off.
I think
sort
that's
of.
probably the best route, is if we go ahead and budget for that, knowing that we're gonna get reimbursed for a prorated, at which point we don't, because the city can use them, we won't,
Yeah.
and we'll get some sort of a rebate back on the longevity of those assets, if that's
I think as
amenable.
long as we can come up with some schedule to
Yeah.
that, I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, I mean, trust me, I have IT in my office and it drives me nuts every day because it only works after.
Sounds
great when it
8
works.
hours.
well, I think their, like, warranty life is like 4 to 5 years, I
Yeah.
think.
Well,
So
maybe we use something like that.
we could do
instead.
that. We could just
Yeah.
say, if you guys are gonna leave them here, then we could just say, okay, whenever you guys decide to leave, we'll just cut that off and then we'll reimburse
Okay.
you back for whatever the cost was.
So why don't you
Okay.
visit with Tondra and figure that out?
Mark and Mary.
Yeah, Mark
Tondra.
and Mary, and then
Yep.
get something to us and get something to the city before the next budget meetings.
Even if we could have it for our budget.
Yeah,
workshop,
on the workshop.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah, because I think that would be the most amenable
Yeah.
way to
Well,
proceed with
It
that.
protects your system.
Yeah, everybody's
from
covered then.
Integrity standpoint.
Yeah.
And then we just.
And we're not out the
use
full
use
cost because
yeah,
you guys
we
can still
turn a
use them.
rebate
so,
or
yeah.
turn around and buy back based on
Yeah.
useful life. And if we use warranty as the useful life, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
No, that was the only question on IT
Okay.
was the switches.
Okay.
So,
Glad we had that conversation. I don't have anything else. Jason, do you?
I guess not on IT stuff, not on budget stuff, no.
No, that's
Okay.
what I'm talking about.
With that, any other business? Jason?
I do have a question, I guess, and maybe I heard part of this conversation at one of the county commission meetings under other business, but today's July 1st, 2025.
No,
We're-
Summit's not here.
That wasn't the
I
question
did that
I
for
was going
Wayne.
to ask. So we're a year and 3 days from celebrating 250 years of the United States.
Yes.
So, is there something, or is there a group that's interested in trying to coordinate some sort of event, recognition, extra fireworks? What are we thinking about here? Does the county talk about anything? Are there any light items in your budget planning for next year, or are we just going to let this one go through?
Did you guys have that discussion on budget or not at all?
Just what Jerry brought up at the last meeting.
Yeah, because we
Yep.
discussed it at the last meeting.
Right.
So I would be in favor of putting something in the budget for that.
Because
You know, I know for-
originally, our preliminary budget right now has got additional dollars,
Okay.
more than what we normally would do.
Because I know, you know, and you did a yeoman's job pulling things together for Bismarck's birthday, so I would probably say try to lean on some of those same resources, but if there's any service groups we can reach out to that would like to coordinate an event, you know, that might be the place to start. Maybe put out a public request for input. Have you thought about putting together a steering committee? And maybe we could do that jointly between the city and the county for some sort of a committee to start spitballing. Because I don't want to dump all this on you.
And I'm not taking it this time. So
already, it was great.
Having done it in 2022 with less than 6 months to plan for everything, I was
Yeah.
very pleased with how successful things came about. But now that we've got a year, to me, this is more than a city thing. This is
Yes.
this is an entire United States thing, a county thing. So how can we coordinate, work together to do something that recognizes?
Well, and I think the state
special
should be
event?
involved too, because as the state capital, this is, like you said, bigger, and I think the state should have some involvement too. So is it the grounds committee at the Capitol, or do we reach out to local legislators?
I guess those are all
Where would
good-
that
good
discussion
questions.
start?
I don't know. I think, just thinking about our organization, it would probably be best if we would identify one person to task with some of these responsibilities, not thinking who that person is at this time. But I like the idea of having a committee. I like the idea of having a lot of stakeholders, because then we've got a bigger reach, we've got a larger audience, we've got more potential to be successful, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be state, city, and county input for that.
So Jason, could we start with the group that worked to take over the 4th of July celebration that we're going to have this year as the starting of that committee?
I think so. I kind of caused that to happen too, and so that
Well,
committee.
I'm not saying for you to lead it, but that
Right,
could
but I
be-
think it'd be a good place to start the discussion, because those are the stakeholders that we work with frequently. It was the Chamber, EDC, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Symphony, because they've been such a part of the events at the Capitol all of these years, Bismarck Parks and Recreation District.
So the Capitol wasn't involved with
The
with
Capitol-
this, so that's,
we can't even use it anymore.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the piece we need to figure out.
Historically,
how we fold them back in.
the Capitol's role in the 4th of July celebration has primarily been the location.
Right.
All the activity planning, the funding, that was all done by the Bismarck-Mandan Symphony Orchestra. Most recently, City of Bismarck was paying for the fireworks. At one time, Burleigh County shared in that expense, and it was within the last probably 5 years that the county has chosen to no longer pay for the fireworks. So, yeah, I think it is worth involving some state leadership as well. I don't expect the location to be at the Capitol, just because of the limitations with fireworks. Obviously, we're going to see how well the Community Bowl works this week for the first time with 4th of July there, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from this event. But I believe the intention would be to be at the Community Bowl permanently going forward, and looking at next year, I think that's a really good opportunity to make it even bigger. So,
Okay.
And the bowl, depending on how it works out, that might be a fantastic idea. Another place that just popped in my brain, maybe it's a bad idea, maybe it's not, but over at Buckstop Junction. They have the
Fairgrounds,
whole
Bear
Apple
Valley
Fest and all
Complex,
that property.
possibly, yeah.
yeah. So we'll see how parking works this first time, and we're encouraging people to carpool, walk if you can, ride your bike, whatever the case might be, but no different than at the Capitol too. It's leaving the Capitol after the 4th of July fireworks, it's a pretty congested area sometimes. So I think for these types of things, people just have to be patient, but if we don't start talking about this opportunity now, we're gonna have even less
It would have been
time.
nice to have this discussion prior to the legislative session ending, but,
Yeah.
well, maybe they could call back into session, we can have that discussion, right? Wayne?
Auditor Sponskowski, in our budget hearing, didn't Jerry Woodcox keep money in the budget for us to help with the 4th of July?
I believe that there's a line item under the commission's budget for county involvement,
Yep,
and there are currently funds
in it.
in it for whatever the commission
Sure.
decides to do. If we want to look at that line item again and increase that,
Back to the workshop.
that's exactly the line item I was thinking
Yep.
of. If that were to be done, that would be where we would do it.
Back to the workshop side of it, and I would encourage that we ask Jerry to be part of this, because I know he is working on
Yes.
the side of the Provident Building as a billboard, if you will, or a big painting
Community art.
Community
piece,
mural.
So.
for it. So he's already involved. If we want to ask him to be part of
Yeah.
this, I think that'd
So
be the
Jason,
right.
if you want to include him in that. Yeah, I don't know if you caught all of it too, but that was one of the other, that's part of where this discussion started at the county level with the Provident Building
Yeah, I think
doing,
it's something with a mural. or
doing a
something,
mural
yeah.
in conjunction with the 250th, so.
And I think we need to celebrate it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
big birthday for the country. So, well, Jason, maybe I would just suggest if you can see if that committee that's working on this year's would be willing to be the
Well, and I think
instigator
they're-
of it, and then get a leader of it, so
Yeah.
it's not you.
I think they're gonna have a lot of takeaways from
Yep.
after the 4th, which can play right into next year, so.
Okay, I appreciate the feedback. I will wait until after the fireworks have settled after the 4th, and then fire off an email to everybody and see if we can generate some interest. I believe this is a great opportunity. If we don't find a way to celebrate it, we're going to really, we'll regret it in the
Right.
future. So I won't be around for the next 250th, so let's make the most of the one we
Well,
got.
it might be. But yeah, definitely we gotta figure out the state involvement piece, because after, what city had to go through, I'm kinda curious what their wishes would be, or their level of intent would be to be involved, so.
When we had the discussion with outgoing Governor Burgum's staff at the end of 2024, they were very interested in keeping the 4th of July celebration at the Capitol, however, very non-committal because of the timeline, and can't speak for the then incoming Governor Armstrong and what his desires are. So, but we can definitely reach out to state leadership as well and see how they would like to engage with us and
Okay.
be a part of this. I think no better place than the capital city to be celebrating something like this. And
Right, and I think starting with the governor's office would be advantageous as well, so. Any other discussions?
I have nothing.
Okay, am I telling Jerry that you volunteered him or not?
Oh, I'll tell him.
Okay. I think he's okay with this one. I think he'll be okay. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.